Good evening, Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. As second speaker of the negative team, I will continue our case, but before doing so, I'd like to point out two major flaws with the opposition's arguments. First, their argument that domestic skills should be a core subject, and second, their idea that making it cool will somehow add to its need to be compulsory. So let me take those one at a time. Firstly, that domestic skills should be a core subject taught in the early years. They argued that core subjects taught in the early years stay with students for life. Now, we agree with this. We don't oppose the psychology. In fact, we firmly believe that whatever children learn early in life will stay with them forever. And this is one of the bases of our opposition to their idea. Domestic skills classes are simply not important enough for kids to waste their time learning from that early age. If kids' brains are open to these things that stay with them for the whole of their lives, then forget domestic skills. Let's put in mathematics, let's put in foreign languages, let's put in computer programming. I can think of 1,000 things that come ahead of how to make Anzac biscuits. Now, I know that sounds insulting, ladies and gentlemen, to the domestic skills teachers in the room, and I don't mean to be insulting, but I mean to say this. Our children are a precious resource. We agree that the early years are really important. We agree that core subjects are important. We disagree that domestic skills is such a core subject. Secondly, their idea that making domestic skills sound cool has any kind of relevance whatsoever. Now, they said they're going to rebrand it as survival skills. They're going to make it cool by adding Facebook and Twitter and YouTube channels and all sorts of cool things to it, and they're going to attract boys and girls equally. So what, ladies and gentlemen? What has that got to do with the idea that it's going to be compulsory? In fact, we agree. We want to make it an elective. So let's make it as attractive as possible. We want kids to choose it. We think it's a great idea that kids learn these skills. But we disagree that it's so important that it's got to be compulsory. And we totally reject their argument about making it cool somehow, and that will somehow link to being compulsory. Those two things just don't stick together, and so we just reject them completely. Now to my case. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to raise 2 points from the point of view of economics. One, that schools should be focusing on the future, and that is science and technology. And secondly, that it is just too expensive to roll out domestic skills classes for every primary school student. We've got other things to focus on. Firstly, the need for schools to focus on the future and on what's important, which is not domestic skills. Christopher Pyne, our Federal Education Minister, said this last week: "There is no more urgent agenda in my department than the desperate need to create primary school student participation in maths and sciences." Why, may you ask, ladies and gentlemen? Because the mining boom is over. Australia no longer has a guaranteed economic future. We must become leaders in communications technology, in internet management, in science, in medical research, in those fields that require maths and science. We simply do not have the time to waste on domestic skills, ladies and gentlemen. I wish we had much more time, and if we did in the curriculum we could include it, but we don't. Our urgent, desperate need is science and maths and the future of our country. Not looking back at past traditions, but looking into the future. We can't waste our time on this. And this leads beautifully to my second argument, ladies and gentlemen, which is about cost. Now, if we go with what the opposition is saying, what if we just let them have their way and we pass the law saying that all primary school students had to take domestic skills classes? What would happen next? Thousands of schools would have to go out and buy the following equipment: ovens, sewing machines, fridges, utensils. They have to build special classrooms. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And then what about staff? Staff can't automatically, magically teach this, so they're going to retrain 5,000 new teachers, cost about $50,000 to retrain a teacher, and they were taking money away from other budgets. We're talking about around $500 million to roll out half an hour a week of domestic skills to every primary school kid. Is it worth it? Why don't we spend the money on literacy? Why don't we spend the money on bridging the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians? Why don't we spend it on equality? Why don't we spend it on a million other things except how to sew on a button? It is just not economic sense, ladies and gentlemen. Not economic sense. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have raised 2 points from the point of view of economics. One, that schools need to focus on the future, which is science and technology. And two, that it is just too expensive to roll out the opposition's plan of delivering this to every primary school student, and these prove that it is a bad idea to make domestic skills classes compulsory.